Good evening. My name is Janice Schwartz. I'm Director of Alumni Relations here at the university, and I'd like to introduce to you the President of our Alumni Association, Doug Hamilton.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Doug Hamilton, class of 1975, and I'm the President of William Patterson University Alumni Association. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to tonight's program and to thank our three distinguished panelists and alums for returning to their alma mater to share their professional experiences and areas of expertise with us. I'm sure that we will all find a great deal of take-home value in what we hear from our panelists tonight. And at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the president of our fine university, Dr. Arnold Spirit.
Thank you, Doug, and welcome. I bring greetings on behalf of the entire William Patterson University community. I guess I'm not going to be able to do that for too much more. And actually, you know, I was looking at today's program, and topics are seeking career opportunities in new fields and dealing with the prospect of reinventing yourself. Second was managing your job search effectively in this economy. Actually, this has nothing to do with you. This is all about me. Not true at all. This is just a wonderful opportunity for the institution to do what it should be doing, and that is bringing you together periodically and helping your careers and helping you network with other alums. I do also thank the panelists for giving us their time and their wisdom. But I thank all of you for coming together here, and hopefully this will serve your purposes, and you'll get to meet individuals who will be helpful to your futures, and you in turn will help others. That's what an alumni association should be doing. That's what a university should be fostering, and I'm proud that we're doing that here today. And I do want to thank Jerry Frangello for inviting us into his home in order to provide us with this beautiful venue. With that, let me turn the mic over to Sandra Deller, Vice President for Institutional Advancement.
Thank you, Arnie. I might also mention that in addition to Jerry turning it over to us, he also is an alum. We really appreciate all of you coming, and I echo Arnie and Doug in saying what we hope is that you find what you were looking for when you decided to come this evening. We are a very distinguished panel of alumni who are experts in their field and who will share some of their insights, perspectives, and really insider tips maybe for you. It's my pleasure to kick it off by introducing our moderator and panelist, Susan Lisovicz. Susan is one of the female pioneers in financial news. She is CNN's primary correspondent on the stock market, making her arguably one of the most prominent reporters in the country, and certainly one of the most visible. Daily, she reports the global markets rise and fall from CNN's New York City Bureau. Susan also reports for CNN International and CNN Radio. Ms. Lisovicz has interviewed many high-profile executives, including Bill Gates, are the panelists too tonight, Warren Buffett, Jack Welch, Barry Diller, and Sumner Redstone. And she has covered numerous national breaking news stories, such as September 11th attacks, the death of Pope John Paul, Hurricane Katrina, and I know she has some real stories on that, political conventions, and major media mergers. Her commitment to journalism really stems back to William Patterson in her college days. While studying journalism, television, and radio, she worked on the Beacon, the school's newspaper.
And the radio station.
And the radio station. I didn't. Okay. Thank you. She began her career as a freelance reporter covering town meetings for Toms River radio station. And that, of course, led very quickly to a permanent position on the weekend anchor. Susan then went on to a number of professional assignments, rising very quickly to the top of her profession. Susan.
Oh, thanks, Sandra. It's my pleasure to be here and to join this distinguished panel. And whenever I do anything connected to William Patterson, I really feel like I'm coming home. It's like you always get that affirmation that, you know, you can do it. And that's what this is all about tonight. We can do it. It's tough out there, but we're going to have some ideas, and we're going to network, and we're going to move forward. But before we do, let's introduce the two handsome gentlemen to my right. Let's start with Christos Cotsakos. Since his graduation from William Patterson in 1973, Christos Cotsakos has been widely recognized as a visionary, architect, and entrepreneur of e-commerce and e-finance. As a pioneer in the use of advanced technology, the former leader of E-Trade Group is now the founder, chairman, and CEO of Pennington Ventures, a digital media and strategic management company. A decorated veteran, Christos enrolled at William Patterson upon his return from Vietnam. Following graduation, he went on to work at Federal Express, where he advanced from the position of cargo handler to a number of senior executive positions, and then at AC Nielsen, where he became global co-CEO, president, and COO. Christos, a recipient of the university's Legacy Award, is accompanied tonight by his wife and partner, Tommy, who is present with us. If you could please stand. Stand, come on. Okay. Tommy, an alumna of William Patterson, is a 2007 Distinguished Alumni Award recipient. Thanks for joining us. Also, on our panel tonight is Manos Avramidis. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, I
Okay.
taking more time on my follow after that.
I feel like I'm taking Greek lessons tonight. A 1993 graduate of William Patterson, Manos Avramidis is the Senior Vice President of Global Human Resources for the American Management Association. In this role, Manny provides strategic leadership for AMA's domestic and international human resources functions. His wide-ranging responsibilities include all aspects of human resource management, from employment, employee relations, and staff development to compensation, benefits, and organizational development. As a William Patterson student, Manny was a member of both the National and International Honor Societies. Today, he is often called upon to quote in newspapers and journals, including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and HR Executive. And welcome to both of you. Make it a little bit more intimate, like we're in a living room, a big living room. And we just decided that we would have a conversation before we would take questions from you, because we know there are a lot of questions. You've got a top CEO, you've got a top guy in HR who's in the front lines, and you've got somebody who's reporting on it every single day. So I just wanted to first just say a couple notes, I think, as to where we are from my vantage point. The economy is improving slowly, like a glacier. We are starting to see houses sell, but a lot of them are distressed. We are starting to see people buy things, but a lot of times, if it's not food or healthcare related items, there's some major incentive. It has to be marked down to zero, or it's cash for clunkers. You get a whole bunch of money for buying something. There's also the $8,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers. So there's a lot of incentives to try to get us to move, and with good reason. The new normal that I'm seeing is that it's going to be tough unemployment for a while. And that means all of us have to hold on to our jobs if we want them, if we need to, as most of us do, and impress upon our bosses on a daily basis just how valuable we are. Now, if we are not working full-time, oftentimes that means reinventing ourselves, going back to school, maybe a vocational degree. Doesn't have to be some major degree, but something to get by, because from where I'm looking at and from all of the scientists and academics and economists that I talk to, they say it's going to be tough for a while. And actually, in terms of employment, in terms of jobs, it will get worse before it gets better. That's what I'm seeing. But Manny is seeing it on a daily basis, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. Well, we'll start with the good news. The good news is 90% of the population that's willing and able does have jobs, right? That's
point.
The good news. The bad news is that approximately 2 or 3 years ago, let's say 2, the job market started to change significantly. So in a capitalistic society, if you're at 5% unemployment, for the most part, that's full employment. And that's where we were just a short couple of years or so ago. And I would venture to guess that not only were we at 5% unemployment, but we were probably at another 5 or 10% overemployment. And what I mean by that is there were people in jobs that were probably too big for them. But employers like my own and many other employers that I'm aware of had no choice but to fill the slots with talent. And along with those conversations, as we try to manage our people, if you will, there was this oncoming baby boomer retirement wave, if you will. And they had started to retire. So every HR conference I would go to, and every head of HR, and every head of recruiting, and every training person would talk about how are we going to succeed these people? Where's your succession plan? What's going to happen when we have this brain drain and everyone retires and goes off and so on and so forth? And then there was a shift. And since then, the 5% unemployment, national numbers of course, shifted more towards 6, 7, 8, 9, and now we're knocking on the door of 10%. And the reality today is nationally it's 10%, and that might be different regionally, and we'll talk about the difference between 10% nationally, or I'll say it now, 10% nationally versus 10% in your state versus 10% in your region. More importantly, what is it in your company? More importantly, what is it in your department? Even more importantly, what is it in your profession? Because there still are professionals out there that are extremely sought after, even in this loose market, I should say. But nevertheless, as we crept to 10%, and we're not there yet. I think it's about 9.7 is what they're reporting.
And then with underemployment.
And that's the second part of it, which is the part that goes unnoticed. There's probably a number that's a lot closer to 18, 19, or 20% where you would include the underemployed. So the definition of an underemployed person. They were unemployed for a certain amount of months. They had no choice. They had to accept lesser responsibilities. So the accountants may be driving cabs or maybe receptionists at a hotel and so on and so forth. And these are true stories. And I know because I've spoken with quite a few people that unfortunately are not employed right now. So now you look at the factor of 20% unemployed or underemployed, or close to 20, versus once upon a time it was 5% unemployed and probably 5 or 10% overemployed. It's a huge shift in the marketplace. So the folks who are not working right now and who are waiting for the change to come, it will come. And Christos and I were talking a little bit before, and I'm sure he'll touch on what is coming. Is it going to be the same that we used to have, or is it going to be something different? And I think we both agreed, and he'll share with you what the position is, if you will. But at the same time, the question is, for those who have work, what are they doing to keep their job? What are they doing to reinvent themselves if necessary? Or what aren't they doing? And for those who aren't doing and hoping for the best, it's not coming. They'll probably wind up losing their jobs today, and they'll probably have a hard time finding a job 1, 2, and 3 years down the road. For those who are focused on what the organization is trying to accomplish, their department, their division, themselves, and are engaged and have some sense of cultural curiosity within their organization, they'll probably be employed for a long time to come. And those who are continuing to learn on a daily basis, if not weekly basis. So that's setting the stage, if you will, for what we're facing out there in the employment market right now.
It's this unemployment thing's got everybody scared, and by rights you should be apprehensive, but it shouldn't get you to think negatively. Some of the things that people do forget in life, that 50% of all the companies in Fortune 500 were either founded or formed in either the worst bear market or in a depression. That even in today's marketplace, right, about 350 out of every 100,000 Americans start their own new business. There's about 320,000 created each and every year. New business, especially small businesses with employees under 20, account for about 70% of all the income generated in the USA today and create the majority of the jobs. So when you yourself as an individual are thinking, you really have to kind of focus on who you are, and in today's environment, it's really all about creating your own brand. because Jeffrey Immelt said that it's a reset economy. It's really a fundamental restructuring of the U.S. infrastructure. And with 10% unemployment, 20% employment, it's irrelevant. What's important is that what Archie Bunker said in All in the Family, 20 years ago, is that when my neighbor's out of work, it's a recession. When I'm out of work, it's a depression. So it's really all about you. And I think what people tend to forget is it's always been about you. The question is, how do you react when both good things happen to you and when bad things happen to you? And when things are sometimes at its worst and trying to improve, and by the way, I think it's going to be an L, not a U-shaped recession. It's going to go on for a long time because it's a fundamental reset, right? There's a lot of things you can do to distinguish who you are over everybody else. Because I can tell you, a good majority of the people just give up. They practice the same old employment tactics for their trying to get a job with an employer that was happening 20 years ago. Yet with the web, with blogging, with all the networking you can do online, with social media and social commerce and Web 2.0 companies, there's no greater time than today for you to brand who you are and make a difference in yourself, your family, your own career, as opposed to being a wage slave for a company, right? And more importantly, for setting yourself apart from everybody else. The key is very few people do it. They either cry in their beer, they sit back and say, oh, woe is me, or they look at it and say, I'll never be able to get that job. And yeah, it's hard, and yeah, it's difficult, but those who want to do it somehow always find a way and always get the job that you wanted to have, the promotion that you thought should have been yours, or really the opportunity that passed you by. And so in today's economy, although I look at it as being difficult, I think it's probably the greatest time for those that have the ambition and the wherewithal to go ahead and be whoever they want to be in America that's being reset for really 2050, not just 2010. And you've got that right in front of you, and I hope we'll talk about some ways, and you can ask us some questions about how that can be done, because there's hundreds of free ways on the net through networking and by creating, again, your own brand, which I think is so important, that enables you to make money today and enables you to have security for your family and enables you to have self-actualization and self-fulfillment in a job market that everybody says is terrible.
Well, I don't know about you, but you have just been such a great, uplifting person to hear from after, hearing from somebody downbeat like me every single day, talking about, the rising unemployment rate, who's laying off and things, but that's the news business. So, okay, what are all the, I know, Manny, you're going to tell us what separates, one resume from another, but what are some of the free things that somebody can easily tap into right now?
Well, there's a couple things, right? I mean, everybody knows about Facebook, and everybody knows about Twitter, and everybody knows about streaming and sort of how that works in the Web 2.0 environment, and that's all good. The downside of that is that when you network that way, you also get a lot of junk, like junk mail in your mailbox, you get junk mail on your website. What you really want to do is set up for yourself, and there's a lot of free things out there like WordPress, right, where you can actually set up your own blogs. I'll give you an example. If you wanted to go, say, in the transportation, and that's really what you love to do, right? And it's whether it's an airline or the trucking industry, it will take you 2 to 3 hours to set up a simple and easy blog where you could write about the industry that you want to be in. And when you're talking to prospective employers and targeting them, you focus them to your blog, not to your Facebook page or to your Twitter page, right? You can also do Twitter to say the things that you're talking about the industry, to become a thought leader. Because look, 30% of the people that follow you are going to be idiots anyway. They'll be on the lunatic fringe, right? So you'll have a big following no matter what you do, even if it's bad. And people like big numbers. 30% will just show up because they want to be part of some movement to find out what's going on. And 30% will really enjoy what you're doing. The other 10% you don't have to worry about. So the ticket is to use something like WordPress, get a blog out for yourself, promote who you are in a positive way while networking through the other different social networking sites that are out there, and make yourself the thought leader for the job and the position that you are in. And you would be surprised the aura you can create around who you are, what you do, what you can become, and how you would separate yourself from everybody else in the marketplace. And it works time and time again. And that's what employers are looking for. If you go on to Monster.com or Simply Hired or one of the big websites that you go,
Career Builder.
There's what? There's 1,000 applicants for every job. You're nobody. So you've got to do that just to kind of get the paper mill going. But when you're more specific and targeted, that's when you'll find some really key results, and it'll start being able to allow you to sort of focus on exactly where you want to go and who you want to be.
Manny, you were chafing at the bit there, right?
No, I think Christos is right on. I also think that what I've seen work best, and this is not a plug, but it's events like this, where you get to meet new people, have a drink with them, talk about what you're doing, talk about what you wish to do, talk about what they do, if there's a need, if they know someone in your network, and you start to build a larger group of friends. I've seen that work at the executive level, and I've seen it work at the entry level. And you know what? People choose to be at different levels. Not everyone wants to be CEO, not everyone wants to be a clerk. Some people are very happy at what they do, if you will. But on the technology front, I would echo the same. But I would offer one word of caution. I don't necessarily go through a lot of these, LinkedIn's, Facebook's, blogs, so on and so forth on my own, but I have staff that does. And I would say 95+% of the stuff that comes in is junk. So I agree. If you want to differentiate yourself, if you do it the right way, in a professional way, you're going to stand out real fast. And what employers want to do is they want to notice a difference. They want to notice that you're taking care of how you position yourself when you're jockeying for a job, if you will. But before we even get to that stage, what I've seen recently is a lot of people have given up hope, but I've also seen a good handful of people who are doing extremely well, who have capitalized on this situation, especially in organizations that have downsized, where they've called upon their high potentials or their better people to do more. And sometimes these people volunteer on their own. They raise their hand and they say, I can do more. What else would you like for me to focus on? So that's the positive side. The negative side is there's a lot of folks who either have given up hope or simply don't know what to do before they get to the level of looking for a job. And what I mean by that is they want to change their careers, but they don't know which direction to go in. Well, I'll be the first to tell you, if you're going to send a resume in and say you're open to all opportunities outside of marketing, let's say, and your resume is filled with direct mail marketing, you're not going to get a call. I can assure you of that. The question is, what have you done, and how can you glorify this, if you will, in your resume to position yourself for that interview?
So it's just good, part of it is writing a good resume.
Sure. If you were to send me your resume and say you wanted to be, and I don't know your background that well, but let's say you wanted to be a head of marketing.
I want to kick Katie Couric's butt.
You can kick her butt too.
Actually, I love her.
For that, you're hired.
For that specific,
and
right?
The question is going to be why? Why should I interview you? And you have to fill out that why in your resume. And then once you're in for that meeting, it's my opinion, and I feel very strongly about this, we get thousands of resumes for each job. Once we narrow it down to a group that's coming in, it's your job to lose. All of those people coming in, you're qualified. If you're not lying on your resume, if it's fairly accurate, you're qualified. The question is, what's going to convince us to either make an offer or not?
So what is it?
I think it's those who demonstrate not only what they've done, that their supervisor asked them to do, but what they created that was new, how they exhibited their level of curiosity, how they helped their employer move forward, how they grew within their roles, how they took steps within their careers. So that when an employer is interviewing you, they're looking at you and saying, okay, not only is this person going to do this cookie cutter job, which a lot of them don't exist nowadays, but they're going to open the doors to new things. If I empower this person, they can make a noticeable difference within the organization. And most employers are looking for those kind of people.
Well, and here's where we'll disagree a little bit, right?
Sure.
In today's environment, it's who you know.
Yes.
You can cut all the crap on every resume you send, how much you polish it. What an employer wants to know is, can they trust you, and do they have some sort of validation that you can do the job for them? And it's usually by a referral or a reference. You can have professional resume writers, they've got a stack about this high, most of them go in the shredder or bin that nobody else ever reads, right? You got to have somebody to get you in the door. And as Manny said, he was right, it's events like this. If you want to go into the entertainment field, show up at all the entertainment venues, volunteer to work at the booths, get to know people that are there, push paper around, do whatever they need to do that sponsors want to have happen. Same thing with advertising or any other field you want to be in. You've got to immerse yourself so totally in the job and the industry that you want to be part of for free. Because all of it's about showing up, and you got to show up where the job is that you want to be part of. So the resume, while it's important and it may be good, at the end of the day, it's not going to get you anything unless you have some in the company. And so the key is do it right, get it on the desk. Again, do monster.com and everybody else, but show up where all the venues are so that you can get connected with people who can connect you to somebody who knows somebody to help get you the interview. And then, Manny, I think all the things about separating yourself, creating your brand, having your personality, everything become very apparent and distinguishes and separates you from everybody else. But today's market in particular, you better damn well know somebody so you can get in the door. Otherwise, the chances of you getting employed are going to be very, very difficult.
And don't be shy, right? I
Absolutely.
mean, even if, say, there's no big convention, but you heard your second cousin said, I live near the president of or the manager of this, and then you know that that person goes to Starbucks religiously every day. You find out, and you just happen to be there, and you have a conversation. And I mean, you can be clever about it. You can't be a stalker.
Right.
That can get you arrested.
Yeah.
But right, I mean, and it's a fine line between being obnoxious and between being, you know, super enthusiastic, right?
Well, look, I'll give you, a key example in my own life, right? I mean, I was a Vietnam veteran, got back from Vietnam, could not get a job, right? I was a platoon sergeant with the 101st Airborne Division, and nobody really, that particular era, that particular war, very unpopular. When you came back, there was really no opportunities. I was very fortunate because an associate dean, Dennis Seal, right, at William Patterson gave me a shot. Most kids had high school degrees where it was cum laude, magna cum laude. Mine was thank you laude. I just barely got out of goddamn high school, right? And so I was very lucky. But when I got out of William Patterson, I still couldn't get a job. I mean, it was nice to have the degree, but you know what? Everybody else had them, and from better named schools. So, of course, when the list came out, William Patterson B&W was always at the bottom, Harvard was always at the top, or all the other Ivy League schools or West Coast schools. So the story I'll tell you is this. My wife and I were on the West Coast. She was looking to get a teaching job. She graduated from William Patterson, and the only time I ever looked for a job in a newspaper was in the LA Times. And they were advertising at Federal Express for a cargo handler, salespeople, and a station manager. I had no idea what Federal Express was. It just happened to be the only page I opened up. Went down, got there late, did everything wrong for the interview. My hair was down to here. I was wearing jeans, holes in them, right, crummy shoes, right. Everybody was gone. All those who were at the bar were in suits and ties, and there was no way I was going to get an interview. I paid the concierge $5, find out who the guy was, went to his room, didn't stalk him, right? Knocked on the door. He opened the door, and I had my interview through the chain because he'd only opened it this wide. And we talked, and he said, after about 20 minutes, I give you a lot of credit for your perseverance. Why don't you meet me downstairs for a drink, which we did. Had a drink with him. He said, you know what? This is gold. I'm going to give you this application, and you're going to be one of the key guys we're looking at. I never heard from him again. All right, so after about 2 weeks, I went down to their offices. It was a mess. It was a young startup company.
Were you dressed differently?
Yeah, I was dressed a lot differently when I went down, right? My hair was a lot shorter. My jeans were a lot cleaner, right? And as I went there, they had boxes everywhere. I knew nothing about transportation. I just started helping out and hanging out. I did that for 2 weeks. They actually thought I worked there after the first week. By the third week, they gave me a job as a casual cargo handler for $3 an hour. A year later, I was a manager. And the point I'm trying to make is that I knew nothing about the industry. I did everything wrong from the beginning. I did have a degree. I had a great military background, right? But what got me the job was gumption. The fact that I just went there, hung out with people, just worked with them, tried to understand what they did to try and be part of it. And I got a job with one of the greatest American companies today, Federal Express Corporation, which employs over 250,000 people in over 250 countries. And you don't get that way by accident. All the other stuff in my career, it's luck, timing, and hard work. You've always had to work the longer hours, the weekends, the nights, the holidays, all the things that nobody else wants to do, you do. And you know what? When they start counting who was there and that job comes open, you're the one who gets the nod because you're the one that was always there. And the same thing happens while you're looking for a job. And somehow, at least in my view, because I really believe that America is one of the greatest countries in the world to have your dream be accomplished is that you gotta work hard at it. And it's not gonna come your way, and no one's gonna give you the golden ticket like in Willy Wonka. It doesn't work that way. You're the one who's gotta set it up from the beginning, and you're the one that's gotta network, and you're the one that's gotta show up and make sure that you create your brand. And damn it, the internet makes it so easy today for everybody. You know, for every 100,000 Americans, there are 350 Americans who create new businesses each year, but only 50% finish it within the 6 months they drop out. By the 7th year, only a third of them make it. And the reason is because they give up along the way when things start getting harder. You know, the lesser individual gives up earlier, but sooner or later they all give up by the 7th year, and then they're in the same spot they started with just 7 years earlier. You have to have perseverance, and you've got to overcome every obstacle people throw at you, because life just isn't a rocket ship up. It's like an EKG machine. And as long as that puppy is doing this, you're alive and well. If it flatlines, you're dead. And so you've got to just make sure you use your own gumption to make it work for you. So I get really ticked off at a lot of sessions when I talk and mentor with young executives, right, about I'm a victim, they cry in their beer, my boss didn't like me, it's all politics. It's never about them. It's always about somebody else doing it to them. But you know, somehow, if you're being mistreated, you're cooperating with the treatment in some way, right? So I would tell you, you got to have a big attitude adjustment in how you're looking at things, and that's a restructuring in the way the American economy is moving now. It's really about a me economy, but I've got to make sure that me separates from everybody else.
Right on. No, I mean, it's true. I mean, I think that any sense of entitlement in the workforce is really misguided, and it's a waste of energy. It's not good for you in any aspect. Just following up on that, on the perseverance thing. So let's just say that you meet a couple of candidates and you only have one opening, right? Sure. And so, but you like three candidates. Would you recommend for these people just to stay in touch? Is it a good idea? Do you ever hear from people like that?
Well, there are some grim realities. If we were to interview Christos when you would have accepted a job, if you will, or colleagues of mine, I can guarantee you if he was the wrong person for the job he interviewed for, we'd hire him for something else, or at least we'd offer the job. But the reality is, I've interviewed lots and lots of executives from the highest level to entry-level people, if you will. There aren't many people like Christos. And if, in fact, they did have that sort of mentality and that sort of attitude that can do, and if I can't do, I'll figure out a way which I will do, there would be no issues for most people. And I can tell you, most people with that sort of mentality, they have jobs now. And not only do they have jobs, they're doing extremely well. And the reality is when they go to sleep at night, they sleep like babies. When their employer goes to sleep at night, they're trying to figure out, how is it that I can retain this person to make sure they don't move on? How can I always be a step ahead of that person? If an organization, in most cases, has 10% of their population with that sort of mentality in the right jobs, they will almost definitely be successful. Usually there's about 5% in an organization that needs to be turned out, if you will, or eventually eliminated. The middle piece, and it's a very, very large middle, is the piece that has to start in today's day and age and also in the future. The people need to start to make a difference. And again, it doesn't mean that every person has to want to be a CEO or strive to work extra hours or weekends or travel around the world and not see their family for 3 weeks out of the 4 in a month. It doesn't mean that. It means they have to define what they want to do and align themselves and their efforts behind the scenes to put themselves in that position where an employer will secure them in a job. And that's the majority of the folks in established organizations. And as simple as that sounds, it's not that simple for some people because they have the wrong attitude. They show up to work, and I don't want to quote Kennedy, but they don't have the attitude of, ask not what the company can do for me, but what I can do for the company. And if you think that's, for those who, and there may be some in the room that feel that way, if you think that doesn't get noticed, God, are you wrong? It gets noticed, and when the time's right, you'll find yourself unemployed. The ones who have the attitude of, how am I going to better my situation and better my organization and the department and the division and so on, they will do well, inevitably. And if it's not for that employer, it'll be somewhere else, but they will succeed. So a lot of what you say, I agree with you 100%. Unfortunately, that kind of attitude is not widespread.
Do you find, like Christos said, that the people you hire generally have some sort of referral, that there's some, a person that can vouch for them that you know?
As I look across, I span the room, if you will, I just get the sense that there's people in this room that are very high-level executives, and there's people in this room who aren't. And in many cases, they're not high-level executives by choice. They want a job, they want a 9 to 5, and they may want to go home and sort of do a real good job while they're paid for it, but not necessarily think beyond it. The referrals, when you start to get into the critical positions, there's two things that happen. Either A, you have a referral, and if you don't, you're paying a heck of a lot of money to a top-notch search firm to find you the right people to put in front of you. That's almost all the time, in my experience and the experience of many heads of HR that I've spoken with. At the mid-level, referrals, if you're running a 40-yard dash, you're 10 yards ahead. And how do you get those referrals? It's by meeting people and broadening your network in a smart way. And the way I see it is not only in live venues like this, but when it's via the internet, treat it as if you're going to be published on the front page of the New York Times or you're going to be reported on CNN that night. Don't be foolish. I mean, I can't begin to tell you how much stuff we see, and right away we say, you know.
You mean on Facebook?
Yeah, on Facebook, absolutely.
Do you check out?
Yes.
Now, let's put that out there, because I know I did a story, I couldn't believe it. Topless in Cancun on the Facebook. No.
In showers, you name it. What we've seen is just unbelievable. And, you know, when you have a choice of
It's a whole different era.
And when you have a choice of 50, that person's probably going to get pushed to the side.
But you know, and Manny's right, but the worst part about Facebook, you can have the best information on it, and it's your friends who are posting on it that can hurt you.
That's right. That's exactly
So
right.
this is where that two-way communication and sharing your information is really wonderful. Or, by the way, they can post a picture of you when you're silly-eyed drunk one night and doing things you probably shouldn't that show up on something that your employer sees or someone that knows them that your prospective employer sees that kills you. So all this information that's out there is wonderful in one regard because you have access to everything. The problem is so does everybody else. And so if you don't do a good job trying to manage your information output and who does what, that's why Facebook has, you know, ignore, accept me, you know, what people can see, what they can't say. You've got to use those privacy tools to protect your privacy, not for your privacy's sake, but so that other people don't leverage that stuff that makes you look bad in the marketplace.
And you have to monitor your friends, too.
Absolutely.
Not easy to do.
You know,
They tag your photos.
it's really funny. Even at the New York Stock Exchange, I was giving a friend of mine and her tween son a tour. We went back, you know, all the backs behind the scenes. It was really cool.
Yeah.
And they taking pictures, and I was in the pictures. And I said, please just don't put me in your Facebook. Not that I was doing anything crazy, but I just didn't want it out there. And I have become, you know, maybe a little paranoid, but I think a little bit of that is better than a perception that's coming out that I don't want.
Yeah.
And perception can be a very negative thing, as we all know. What are some of the other things you want to point out? I guess, like Manny, like I couldn't believe it. Like I read that some people take cell phone calls while they're going for interviews. I mean, it would seem common sense, but I mean, can you give some do's and don'ts that you've actually observed?
You know, first, as far as interviewing is concerned, some of the practical stuff. If you know someone, obviously you want to tap into that person you know and ask them all about the organization and their culture. How should
Be prepared.
Yeah, how should you dress? There are jobs where if you don't go dressed the way I'm dressed, they might not look at you. There are jobs where if you go dressed the way I'm dressed, they want nothing to do with you. It really depends on the culture and what they're looking to hire. Not that easy to figure out unless you know someone on the inside or it's a popular brand like Google or something like that. But once you go to the interview, what I always like to do coming up throughout my career and what I recommend to a lot of individuals is you look at your resume, you look at the ad, if you will, or the job description, which you can easily find on their website. 99% of the time, job descriptions are posted for compliance reasons on an employer's website. And you start to match. What the interviewer is going to do in HR is going to ask questions that are specific to the job description. Then they'll go into some competencies and try to ask some other open-ended questions. But for the most part, if you can look at your resume and say, okay, how am I going to tailor this in a truthful manner to match that job description, and how would I answer these questions if they were asked? It's very, very predictable. The smarter interviewers are going to ask you some open-ended questions. When have you built a team? If you're going for a supervisory role, how have you led that team? Why would someone want to work with you? Why would someone want to hire you? What is it that differentiates you from the supervisor across the hall? What is one or two negative things that your supervisor would say about you? What are areas that need development? But you can find all this stuff on the web. These questions are easy to come by. And so long as you're in there and you're honest and truthful with your resume, the interviewer is a good interviewer, you should be okay.
You've said honest a couple times. Just, that's like absolutely no way. No.
Once you lie, you don't get a second chance.
You
There's-
did.
yeah.
You lie, you're done.
You did.
Yeah.
You lie, you're done. Plus, remember, most interviews are dumb as a fence post anyway.
Yeah.
You think they're smart. They're not. They just happen to have the opportunity to say no to you.
That's right.
And most of them say no. And so, it's just so important that you sort of got to figure it out, You always have to be true to yourself and be who you want to be. But if that's not successful, try being somebody else till you get the job, then work it out. Because the ticket is all jobs, because you're correct, they all have a certain zeitgeist, right? They have an ethos and thing that goes with it. And sometimes you're just not quite sure. Like he said, if guys showed up at work to us that wanted technology jobs and they wore suits, there's no way we'd hire them. Too straight, too in-the-box thinking, not very collegial, which you need to have in the technology field. But if we were looking for a top-notch manager and they came in jeans, right, and a casual shirt, not the right guy, not the right image, not the right woman if she's not dressed right. So you got to kind of play it and figure out what's the culture and environment that you're interviewing in, which is difficult to do. Yeah. But you've got to do your homework. If you're going to interview for a job, hang out at that place for a week before it happens. Try and get into the cafeteria. Listen to what people are saying when they're out with their smoking breaks, right? Try and wander in the lobby floor that has access to everybody. You have to take every advantage you possibly can so you go in with a list of more things you know than you don't know. Because the more you don't know, the chances are you're not going to get that job that you need to have.
I got my start in my career at William Patterson, and I knew nothing about networking, but I was writing for the paper, I was working for the college radio station. I absolutely loved all my professors, and in my senior year, I was so, just out of it, that my professors were saying to me, I know somebody at such and such a place. My first two jobs were through recommendations from the professors at William Patterson. First at ABC Radio Network and then at the Associated Press. Associated Press, I started writing, reporting, getting bylines. I had a byline in the Washington Post. And I met one of the most famous and distinguished reporters at the AP, Peter Arnett. Peter Arnett won the Pulitzer Prize for his reporting in Vietnam. He was one of the, he risked his life, and he was also a Class A flirt. So I was just out of college, and so it worked out fine. I just, he gravitated toward me, and but it was all very innocent. But the point is that he went to CNN, and CNN had just started, and at some point I called him up and said, "What's going on in Atlanta?" That's how it happens. And I got an interview, and I thought I was very brash when I was being interviewed, and I said, well, you can hire me as a writer, but I'm going to be a reporter here. And the guy didn't blink. And I thought, wow, I showed him. And then I realized at some point that every single person who had come before him said the same exact thing. They weren't coming to write for cable news network. They wanted to be a reporter or an anchor or something like that. Christiane Amanpour was one of them. Katie Couric was another. I knew them both. We were both doing all the, whatever it was, fetching coffee, writing the intros to anchors. We were doing everything and anything. But that's how it started. It started small for me, and I worked my way up. I am so proud of it because I did all that stuff, and I don't take any crap or any attitude from anybody. I don't care what school you went to, because when I was working at William Patterson, and I was proud of that too, there was no entitlement at William Patterson. A lot of the people I went to school with worked because they had to. I'm still working because I have to. Right on. So I just want to put it out there. But you know what? I also want to say one thing. I have a couple, the world's greatest aunt. I have 7 nieces and nephews. So they're all great kids. And now they're getting along, and a few of them in college. And so one of them interned. I've helped a lot of students get into CNN as interns, unpaid interns. One of them was my niece, and she did a great job, fantastic job. You know, I said, oh, I don't care about, you know, you don't have to know everything. What I want you to do is show up on time and do what they ask you to do, and do it the best of your ability. That's all I'm telling you. If you're running late, you call. You come in every single day. And she did that and then some. And she met Warren Buffett with me one day when we were on assignment. Her brother, who's at Colgate, great school, great student, shy. I tried to get him a couple of internships because he loves sports, he loves journalism. 3 different places, the NBA, Sports Illustrated, and then a guy who's has his sports marketing firm. And I tried to get him. He has a great resume, my nephew. Very accomplished athlete, great grades. He didn't get any of them. And I think it's because he did not sell himself. It's not his nature. He's extremely humble, extremely humble. And I'm telling you, you can't be humble. You don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to be pompous. But you have to, right? You have to get out there and say, I will do for you. I'm a great writer. I know everything. I can report stats back to the 1930s. I mean, you really have to sell yourself.
You know, I say the same stuff now as a CEO, right? And we were, you know, in the Fortune Super 500, as I did when I was a manager, but nobody listened to me then. You know, so you have to be able to know when do you have the pulpit and when to use it, right? And you also have to be able to keep educating yourself along the way. Look, I went to night school for 3 years to get my MBA. It took me 10 years to get my Ph.D. I went to the University of London. I commuted, right, because I lived in Europe for a while. But I wanted to make sure I loved economics. It was something that was really important to me. I love technology, right? I wanted to slam the two together. I wanted to have academia, and I wanted to have also the practical application of it. And it was hard. You know, my wife and I almost didn't make it for a couple of years because I traveled so much and worked so hard. So your spouse has got to support you too. So not only do you have to have that level of support where you're doing what you want to do, you have to make sure that whoever you hook up with in life, right, also is going to do what you want to do, so you do it together and you have a life goal together of where you're going to be. Because I know so many young people that are saying, you know, my girlfriend or my partner, you know, or my boyfriend, they want me home at 5, they want me home at the weekends, you know, and then 10 years later they're saying, what the hell are you doing here at 5 o'clock? How come you're not working on the weekends? Because they've changed. You just got to make sure you understand what's in it for you and what's right, and who you hook up with. Do you share those same goals? Because so many small business owners and so many people that go into business or jobs get it and fail because of their family responsibilities or who they hooked up with. They never got those in alignment. So there's so many things you have to checklist on to make sure that everything you're doing is in the right order before you go out and seek the job opportunity that you think is right for you. So you got to make sure you check that box. And much like you said, you've got to sell who you are, because nobody else knows you better than you, and no one's going to know that unless you lay it out on the table in a good way. Not an arrogant way, like you said, or a boisterous way. But you got to separate yourself from everybody else. And there's a lot of people out there looking for jobs today. So it's really critical, and you can do that. I'm a big believer that anybody can get a job today they want. You can take a crappy job until you get one, right? You can take an intermediate job. You can take a free job as an intern just to get in place, right? There's so many things you can do to set up your career, and you always have to reinvent yourself, because whatever you're doing today is out of date a year from now. And everything changes so quickly in society, culturally, environmentally, technologically, from a communication standpoint, that if you're not constantly on top of everything, you become obsolete and a relic of the past so very quickly. And you know, you get old so fast when you're not productive with yourself. You start thinking differently. You bitch and get angry about things that when you had a job and were more productive, you weren't. You change your whole personnel and your whole style. Your friends don't like you as much. You don't go out as much. You've got to keep that inner energy really, really, really tight, wound tight, and high. And you can never give up, and you can never surrender, because there's always another move to make until they put you in the ground. Then it's over. You know, so until that time, Christ, you can do anything you want to do. And people just forget that. And jobs aren't life and death. They're just damn jobs. you know, and you can always make money. Just depends about how much money you make on what you're willing to do for it.
I tell you, I'm fired up. I am fired up. This might be a good time to start taking questions, right? Okay, there we go.
I'm sorry, we're out of time. We're going to leave. It's over now.
No, I mean, that's really great. Not to be negative, Nellie. No, there are certain realities. For instance, I have a communications background. There are certain realities that certain either thought patterns or the arts are cut or perspectives.
Yeah.
So back to this blogging issue. I mean, I could take an example of Julia and Julia.
Yeah.
That's a great example of something that worked. So the blogs become 95% or whatever percent poopy because they become just a perspective or just a vent or just a this. So let's say you have something to offer in your blog. How are you going to make money off your blog?
I'm not talking about making money off your blog.
Or turning it into a voice that can be a career for you, so to speak.
Well, look, you know, that's stuff
I mean,
that...
is the blog a new reporter, or, I'm sorry.
The blog can be a lot of things, right?
Right.
And it's a good question, and I'll give you the example. We weren't looking for a business development guy. And one of the guys at one of the companies that we do work with said, hey, did you read this guy's blog on sub-emerging technology? I said, no, you don't, check it out. And as we read it, we read more of what he was blogging, and he was doing it for himself, by the way, right? And it was really insightful about the industry. There's no ads on it. It was nothing, just about how he viewed the way the industry was changing. It was so phenomenal. We brought him in for an interview. He got through, and there were people that had Harvard MBAs all stacked up, right? You know, he got the job in 48 hours because what he wrote was so phenomenal. The fact that he took the time, and he wasn't looking for a job, right? So you've got to figure that out. But there's so many ways to use the blog, use streaming, use Twitter, et cetera, in a good, positive way. And you don't have to be negative about it. Not everything's going to come your way. You're going to fail more than you succeed, but that's what it's all about.
Okay, so one follow-up question
Yeah.
to that. If someone gave you the tip of this great blog, in other words, I get like you blog it for yourself,
Right.
and he had great insight, and that's soulfully excellent. But still, there was some sort of connection that got you, and some middle person
Right.
either read it or so. Help me out with that. Like,
Luck
was that
and-
just random?
luck and
Then
timing.
I get that.
Luck
That's
and
great.
timing.
That's great.
You know,
But you can make your luck.
you can make your luck. You can make bad luck and good luck, and most people make bad luck, by the way.
Fair enough. No, thank you.
I too work in the communications field. I have a question or maybe some advice. I've been with my company for a total of 9 years. I've survived a dozen or more layoffs, company names. We've been bought out. We're in the outsourcing industry. Now what I'm facing at this point in my life, I'm in my 30s, I'm single, I'm burning out. I've had the can-do attitude, I've helped out, I've worked weekends, holidays, nights, you name it. I've been there, I'm the reliable person that they always go to. What I'm finding is that nothing has really changed in my career. I've moved up the ladder many times. I'm in management. I've actually, now I'm back in a different role, but anyway. But nothing has changed. My role continues to expand and expand and expand, and I feel as though there's been a number of reduction in force. Our team is lessened.
So you're being more productive. You're taking on more and
I'm
more.
taking on more and more because our team has been reduced, and there's half of us. So my question or advice is, what do you do? Because I don't want to say no. I've actually come to my managers and I try to give them a strategy and a proposal on how to get help with work, but there is no one. They don't want to hire resources. They don't.
Is that just,
we don't have a
just
budget.
to get you through this particular downturn, or
It's
is
been
that?
over the years, as time has progressed, the roles that I've had, and now I'm back to the department I was originally in the communications role, and I'm doing the job of probably 4 people, what we used to have 4 people do. Now it's myself. And I'm also on, we call them implementations when you start up a client. So I'm on about 3 of them. And I'm still working from 9 till, I'm not even kidding, about midnight. Like, I'm constantly working. And so my thought is, okay, I'm ready for a change. I want to go into a different field. But I'm not sure. I guess I'm hesitant and reluctant. Is it like that everywhere? Is this just my business, my industry? Will this change? I mean, it doesn't seem to change in the company I've been in, and they've had, I guess about 4 buyouts at this point, and I started in around 1999, 98. So I'm just not sure. I mean, I've had the can-do
Have you told your
attitude.
employer that you're burning out? That
I'm trying to.
well, I mean, have you told them you're
have.
working 80 hours
They've
and that
they've offshored a lot of things, including our HR department. It's now in Mexico.
I'll tell you,
Manny. Oh, that's
I
not
have
good.
very simple advice
So,
for
I get. I mean,
you know, the reality
my
is... the
fear is that it's like this everywhere.
The reality is you've quit and stayed.
you. Yep.
So,
That's the bottom line. You've quit and you stayed, and you know what? It's time to leave. That's it.
Maybe
There's
it's-
no like
so
analyzing
there
it.
is a light
I
at the end of the
don't-
tunnel somewhere else.
I don't know. You may find the same shit when you go someplace else, right? At the end of the day, you've quit and stayed where you are. For all the good things you're doing and all the
Yeah.
things you're working on, it's just getting worse for you.
Yeah.
You know, you've realized it, and you're still there, getting a paycheck, so that's a good thing, right?
Right,
You got to
exactly.
figure out to pack it up and get out of Dodge.
Because I want
You're
to
going to
have
be
that
one
energy
unhappy lady
life
when you're
outside
40
of it.
doing the same thing.
Right.
I agree. To
Yeah.
try and change that within your existing employer is almost impossible.
Not going to happen.
It's not worth the effort. It's
No.
time to move on. And I have to tell you, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Yeah.
So the next time, make sure you do it right. Don't fall into the same pattern because it might be the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So the bottom line is find another job somewhere else, and it's not necessarily going to be the same.
It'll
Just
be what you make it.
Yeah.
Right.
If you allow it to be
I
9
think
to
you
midnight.
have to draw some, a line in the sand as to what you can't do that all the time. I mean, in my business, there's a reason why it's a youth-driven business for a few reasons. People are really hungry, and they'll work, 7 days a week and all that. And honestly, it's one of the reasons why I stayed in business news, because I thought I could have a life and really do it.
Yeah, no.
Really do it. I work a pretty intense schedule myself. I'm sure both of you do. But I think you do have to draw a line at some point. And if you can't, after everything that you've just said, I mean, you could get sick, really sick, from what, and people do. They get all sorts of illnesses.
that's why I'm questioning what I'm doing.
Well, I think, does the audience agree here? Get another job.
Just find a job first before you quit, okay? Let's be clear on that.
No, you've proven yourself through all these downsizings, that you're very capable, but you deserve better.
Or if you really want to leave, stop working the 80 hours, they'll lay you off, you get your unemployment, then look for a job. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to make it work out to your advantage, but the ticket is, you got to do what you love and love what you do, and sometimes you do things you hate to find out what you love to what you do, and you have steps you have to go through, but to stay in the job you're miserable at is absolutely crazy. Life's too short.
Life's too short.
Just remember, you're going to be dead soon, so you want to make sure you make the best of your life as long as you're here.
Okay. All right, we have somebody over here, I'm told.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm a pharmaceutical rep. I've been doing it for 20 years, and I passionately love it. I've turned down promotions. I just enjoy it that much.
Good for you.
And over my 20 years, we've always had negative pharmaceutical reps. Oh, the industry's falling apart. In a few years, they won't need us. And I've always kind of poo-pooed them. But now, drug goes generic, company doesn't need as many reps, they lay them off. There's more unemployed pharmaceutical reps than any time throughout history. So like, I'm torn. I want to stay with this job till I retire, but I wonder if there's going to be a job this nature. Any thoughts, suggestions, or?
Pharma reps, we do some work in that industry, right? And pharma reps are kind of like the brokerage industry was of the last decade, right? In the next decade, they're going to be a pretty big commodity, and it's going to be a very tough business to be a rep in unless you're really top tier with one of the big companies. And
Why is that?
it's just because there's so many drugs that are going to be sold online. It's doctors' offices are changing. How you sell
Is
is
it
changing.
regulation, too?
Regulations changing. There's so many different things that are coming out in the marketplace that there are jobs that, whether you want to believe it or not, are really becoming dinosaurs. And if you stick with that job, no matter how much you love it, you're going to end up being a dinosaur with the industry that you're in. And that's going to be one of them, unfortunately. So my advice to you would be, right, I mean, I'd start looking around and figuring out how I could leverage that great selling ability that you've got into an industry that's growing and developing and emerging.
Healthcare is growing, though.
Yeah,
That's one
but
of the
in different
few-
areas.
Right. But you can use all that institutional knowledge
that you've got.
And if you're a salesman, I'm sure that you're, representative. I'm sure you speak well, that you know a lot, and I'm sure that you could work maybe in a different aspect for a pharmaceutical company.
Or I take the next promotion. Whatever way it works, you know what I mean? It's take the next promotion, leverage that into another job. It just depends on sort of what you want to do, but you got to figure out where your industry's moving and then where your job's moving within that industry.
How many years? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
How many years before retirement?
Well, I'm 45. I was hoping to work till early 60s, so I got pushing 20.
Yeah, I tell you two ought to talk together, right? Get together afterwards and, figure this out. And I mean that in a good way, right? Because we try to use humor a little bit, but 45 is young. That industry's going through a lot of growing pains. And if you're as good a salesman as you say you are, that's one thing the world never gets tired of in any industry. And you can switch careers like that. And if you're good in pharma, I'll tell you what, the education and training industry is booming today. And they're looking for salespeople in that industry that are very talented. Because if you can sell any product. And that's a product worth selling that has a great career track associated with it.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Education?
Education and training, yeah.
Like for selling for a college, you mean, or like for?
Whether you're working for the University of Phoenix, where you're doing education online, whether you're doing, there's a lot of training companies online now that are selling their products and services through software or through applications on the web. There's an enormous amount of talent that people are looking for that are in the sales genre that can sell. All you have to do is learn the product. I put my feelers out in a lot of the industries, right, that are out there that are different from pharma.
And how about like medical devices? I've heard that's taken a little bit of shaking as well. Do you know?
That's a tough business. It's getting tougher along the way. Again, that's just it's a commoditized business, right? They're big sales now. They're reducing their sales forces. They're cramming down territories. So it's a shrinking business where only a few are going to survive that are very talented.
Thank you.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I would like to piggyback this gentleman here. Thank you. I've been working in a healthcare institution for 25 years in a nursing program. And I'm getting to that point where it's not enough. I want to do more. I do a lot of academic counseling, a lot of academic advisement, recruitment, and I often want to go out there and stretch myself more. I know I can do more. It's just like I'm feeling suppressed. But at the same token, while I'm going out there, I'm also hearing you have a job, you've been there for 25 years, you need to stay there because you know the job market is hard. So one breath I'm hearing, you have a burning desire, you want to do more, you have that energy. Like this gentleman, I'm only 45, I say to myself, I got about another 20, 25 years to work. I want to go and do something, but yet, do I make that move and then find out, well, I should have stayed where I was in the first place because the job market is not really what it's all cracked up to be. I might go someplace else and don't keep the job. So I'm torn between the two.
What is it that you do?
I work for a nursing school, hospital, Holy Name Hospital, School of Nursing Administration.
You're not a nurse, you're an administrator.
Administration. And I've been there for 25 years. I started out just fresh out of high school, and then I earned my way right up to graduating William Patterson and went to get my master's at Thomas Edison. So a lot of my colleagues say, you should be able to do more. You're sitting on your master's, and you have that experience, you have that energy to really do more. Why don't you go and maybe work in a university or college where you have a larger volume of students that you can work with, opposed from in a small nursing program. But then at the same token, I hear, you're going to take a chance and step out of a job you've
So you
been
don't
at for
see any opportunities in the hospital?
I'll be honest with you. I have approached that area with our human resource department, right up to our president, who I know very personally. And basically what he tells me is, you are where you are,
So now
and there's
three
no
of you in the box.
advancement, you're not going anywhere.
This is going to be one gift wrap session for a bunch of you here in this room. We're going to put you all on one side and talk to you individually, you know?
I know basically he's telling me, it's, you know what they say, if you don't like it, leave.
But
Okay.
they're basically saying, this is
it.
where you're going. And I mean, you're staying right there.
That's it.
See, there's code, right? There's code that all businesses use, and you figure it out, but you don't believe it, right? And you've already figured out that, you know, you shouldn't stay there. I should be doing something different. The problem is I don't want to look back and say I made a mistake because I don't want to take the risk. But you know what? You got to make the choice. And as you said, you got to put a line in the sand and say, here's where I'm going to go. And if it doesn't work out, I'm not going to kick myself in the ass and say I shoulda, coulda, woulda, because that doesn't work either. Figure out what you want to do. Go after it. Take the consequences and keep moving forward. And
Okay.
don't look back.
Okay, I agree. Now, that is what I have been doing
Good.
actively. Now, my question is, I think going back on the resume, I critique the resume because I don't want to lie, and I'm honest. But then I get to the point where I'm overqualified, underqualified. You know, where is that mark? Where is the line that you put?
It depends the job you're going for, right, Manny?
Well, you know, I have to tell you, and what Christos just said, don't look back. I don't get the sense, in all honesty, that you have that fire in your belly that you will not fail with the next step you're taking. You're worrying too much, which tells me that you're not ready to take the move.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you now, you might be right.
We're all the witnesses.
Right.
Here.
You might be right. But now today, I can honestly stand here and say now that my daughter has graduated college and I have no responsibility. Before, yes, I was concerned about the welfare of my daughter, but now it's just me. So now, no, I'm not afraid because, it's, you know, houses, material things, I can work around that. Now it's about me. So I just want to know, you say don't leave your job. If you have a job, you've been sitting there 25 years, it's not, you know, in jeopardy.
Want more. I mean, you want
But
more.
I want more, so I should just go
Go
out there
for
and
it.
go for it, right?
But don't call me up if you're unemployed. That's the risk you run, right?
That's exactly
Well, I
right.
would, yeah.
But you know, here's the deal, right? And here's the part that's interesting. You could have stood up and said, you know what? My daughter's now out of the house. She's in school doing well. I've been 25 years with a great company. I've hit the max where I want to be. I've learned everything I wanted to do. I've got my master's. Now I'm going to go out and kick ass and get a new job. That's a whole different way of expressing what you want to do. You need to sort of verbalize it differently so you get your head mentally in the right game. And that's what people fail to do. They agonize so much over such trivial shit. It's unbelievable, right? Instead of just really focusing on what you got to do and you go for it. And you know what? Most people succeed who do that. And those people that don't.
And you wouldn't be asking us, you would be telling us, this
Yeah.
is what I'm going to do.
Absolutely.
With that level of conviction. But if you don't have that conviction in your heart, be careful. Okay, well,
Right,
that's
there you
great.
go.
Good luck. This is
Right
good.
on. Woo!
Now, come on, you're not going to be number 4, are you?
I'm thankful to have actually a good job right now. I'm doing accounting. I've been out of school at William Patterson for a year now, and about a year and a half. But I'm only doing accounting because I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to start a business, and I'm making good money. You know, I don't have a whole lot of expenses, but is this the right time? And how do you go about it?
I don't get it. I'm in accounting. I got a great job, but I'm only doing it because I want to be an entrepreneur. But is this the right time to be one? Well, how the hell do we know? I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, come up with an idea and do it, and you'll find out.
Well, that's the thing. I have plenty of
You know, it's
I have
like-
plenty of ideas.
Yeah?
And all that kind of stuff. But there's too many people saying this is not the right time. You need to wait. It's not.
Oh, so they run your life.
No, they don't. But I'm asking your advice.
Well, I don't know what you're going to do. Look, a whole part of this is to be antagonistic with you,
Right.
to get you to think, to not to do it in an unhealthy way, right? It's to have some fun with you and say, look, you are the master of your own domain, the master of your own life. You make those decisions. People will give you advice all day long, and the next day change it. And say, oh yeah, you know what? We were right the other day, but no, we were wrong. You should have done this. If you like accounting, stay there. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to commit big time. Most entrepreneurs fail again and again and again until they get it right. And when they do, it's the best job you'll ever have in the world.
Right, but the other thing is that you said you have no expenses. I mean, what a great time,
It's a great
right?
time to do it.
A great time. You know, you didn't say you have 5 kids and 2 ex-wives and, you know, you carry
Yeah,
2 mortgages.
right.
Now's the time. Live at home and, you know, just
And you said
take it all.
you're not married?
No, I'm single.
I'll tell you, you'll score a lot better if you're an entrepreneur than an accountant. Let me tell you. When you're standing at the bar and they say, what do? You say, I'm an accountant. It doesn't work.
I've learned that, and I'm
I
going
own
to take
my
your
own
advice,
business.
actually. All right. Thank you.
And it is a good profession, by the way, being an accountant.
We were talking about whether or not he should go out on his own. Is this on?
It is. Yeah, we can.
Sorry. And I guess that brings me to my question is, does age play a factor into the getting a job or not getting a job?
Absolutely. The older you are, the
Negatively?
harder it is.
The older you are, the harder it is.
Yep.
So go for it now, right?
Absolutely.
There's many things that, you know, I wanted to do and I didn't do them because of all various reasons. And now I am at an age where I can't really do certain things. So I don't know what you're waiting for. Just do it.
Now, having said that, the older you are, the smarter you are, the easier it is for you to figure out how not to make the same mistakes you did, and you have more leverage. If you're trying to apply for a job, it's harder. If you're trying to be an entrepreneur, it's easier. So there's a yin and a yang on both sides.
What do you mean by age? Do you mean by with age comes responsibilities, the mortgages, the kids, the spouse,
Well,
that
harder
sort
to
of
get
thing?
a job. When the older you are, the harder it is to get a job.
Just simply your age.
Simply age.
I don't, I'm not sure I agree with that.
Okay. What's
Maybe
your take?
today, but in the next 5 years, there are probably going to be more jobs than people in this country. People willing to work, if you will. Or in the next 10 years. Let's see how the market behaves and how the boomers behave, whether they retire in large waves or small waves. But there's some factual information out there that proves that, in fact, we're going to have some pretty good choices in the near future. But let's see. Depends on retirement.
But here's the issue, though. In Japan, right, when you hit your 60s, right, you're revered as a national treasure. In the U.S., when you're 55, you're washed up and out of it. Right? And it's and although I agree with Manny, because the job market's changing such that I think the U.S. is going to start valuing experience, and those people have it over time. But that's going to be a longer cycle than I believe that a lot of us are going to benefit from, right? So I would tell you, I don't know if it's age discrimination or it's just we're just youth cultured. Because I think that there is a respectfulness of age, but you know, younger people get it done quicker, faster, and cheaper. Right? And that's what companies look for today. So if you can do it quicker, faster, and cheaper, you know what? You got a good shot at it because you're more experienced at it. But it isn't easier. It is harder. Right? But the knowledge base that you have, when we look for people in key jobs now, especially in the technology world, we're looking for older people, which validates what you've said, because we want people that are mature enough to manage the wild young kids that we have, who have all the great ideas and all the piss and vinegar to get it done, but someone's got to channel it. And we want people that are responsible and seasoned that can get it done in an appropriate manner without losing that enthusiasm that youth brings when they attack a new job or a new position or a new idea, right? So I think it's kind of a mix of both. You got to kind of figure it out depending on who you are. Because the other thing I would say is, do you think you're old? Because if you do, then that's going to be discrimination, but you apply that to yourself, not other people applying it to you.
Well, I don't think I'm old. I'm older.
Okay.
But I think the problem that I hear people always say is, well, you know, you have to be careful when you start to go out and look for a job. It's not going to be as easy as you think because you're not as young as you were. And so, you know, they just kind of make you feel like you're going down a road that's almost futile, you know.
We're all going down that same road, though. We're all getting old.
I will respectfully disagree. For you, you're way off that mark. You're nowhere near the mark of worrying about your age, in my opinion. For most jobs, you're way too young to worry about it.
I agree.
Yeah, in general, and I can tell you that when the market turns, and there will be this reset, it's not going to be what we were used to a few years ago. I think it's going to be a lot different. I would think that tomorrow's 60 will be today's 50. And when you look at firms that are marketing products out there with the baby boomers as they move through the cycle, if you will, there's this huge population that organizations want to figure out how to market to, from Coca-Cola to Pepsi-Cola to everyone else. And there's some great pieces out there that you can read. Ken Dykewell, I believe his name is, has written some wonderful books on the topic and just how important it is to understand that generation. And the reality is that generation is best understood by itself, meaning that 60, 62-year-old, not the 24-year-old. Now, there's different markets, different jobs, entirely different presentation or story, but there's enough out there.
You know, I saw this fascinating story in the New York Times over the past year. Maybe some of you saw it. I just remembered it now, about older interns. Did anybody see this? It was unbelievable. Unpaid internships. People relearning something. I think it was a woman. I remember it was a picture of a woman, I think, at Google, and they were tapping into her, but she was, of course, tapping into all the stuff that she didn't know, or technology, say, and that was an investment, a real investment, just like a student internship. It can land you a job. At the very least, it lands you new skills. I mean, that's something I never heard of before, and I think it's really cool.
Well, I think the other thing, too, is that there are industries that you would be old in, and a lot of them are the older industries. There are a lot of newer industries, right, that you would be young in. And what you have to, again, think, it's where we started the conversation. You got to think about what really turns you on in life, right, with work, career, life, family, et cetera, where you really want to be. And that changes as you get through all your different levels. And, you know, Gail Sheehy's book about passages, which is so good about those passages that we go through in life. And you change with it, but then you have to get the education or the retraining, which the AMA, here's a plug for you guys, does a great job on, as well as MCE Europe, right? Because they're not expensive, they're good training classes to get you so you can change that, or not change, but add to the skill set you've got so you can get into that new environment where your age isn't a factor, it's actually a benefit. And oh, by the way, I heard the new 60 was 59, so it's a whole different issue. So it all depends how you look at it.
But I will tell you this in general, this isn't specific to you. One of the issues we have with older applicants in general is you use a stereotype. Well, they're not comfortable with technology, they don't know what's going on. And I can tell you right now, if you're 60, 65, 75, and you're not comfortable with technology and feel you don't need to learn about it, don't even bother.
You're dead.
You're dead. Don't even bother. You'll work in Walmart, something like that, and if you're comfortable with it, you're fine. Well, there's plenty of folks saying, oh, I don't really deal with the iPhone, BlackBerry, I don't spend time on the web, I don't really know systems that well, you're done.
But even at Walmart, I mean, even if you're doing, I mean, Walmart is incredibly sophisticated. That's how
stocking shelves or
that's
something
how
like
it became the 800-pound gorilla.
Thank you. Yeah.
The gentleman back there?
Yeah, do you have any suggestions or advice in terms of breaking into the hidden job market of this academia?
Hidden?
Panel of folks here.
Yeah.
Breaking into academia?
Well, in what regard, though? You mean like at a college level, a high school level, as a teacher?
College or university level.
Hey, Arnie? Where is he? No, one of the things I was going to say is at least from what I understand, right, and I was a visiting professor at the University of London, right, is that if you don't have your Ph.D., you don't have a shot. That's the entry card, because everybody's got them. You know, and so...
And everybody's going for them now.
And everybody's going for them now. And because of schools like Nova University, which pioneered getting your EDD and PhDs online in 3 or 4 years, right, more and more people have them that had instructors' jobs at the universities or colleges, that had their masters, that were told, if you don't have the advanced degree, you're not staying here. They've all got them now.
Do you have your PhD?
Not yet.
But you're going? No. Oh.
Then I'd say you probably don't stand a shot in hell at getting a job at a university.
There's no PhD in fine art.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's a different issue, though.
Masters in fine art, isn't
You know,
it?
then you've got to be, then you have to be accomplished, though. Well, you get the MFA, but then you have to be accomplished in your field to get in, unless you have someone you know, right? And that's the other way to get at it. You know, and you know, I'll tell you though, if you are good at what you do and you've got a Master of Fine Arts, there are great schools like the Academy of Art in San Francisco, right? There's the Fashion Institute. There are great art schools that hire practitioners, not academics. And that's where you should look, because I can tell you, my daughter went to both, right? And she learned more from the Academy of Art University, right, than she did from Pepperdine University, where she got a degree in theater versus motion picture and television, because she dealt with all the practitioners in the industry and built her network. So if you've got that skill set, that's where I would go, because those are the people that are hiring, for those that have that skill set, as opposed to the university level in typical academia. I hope that helps. It's
One more question. Make it a good one. Oh,
I'll go.
oh here we go.
But here's the deal before, what's your name? Mike, stand up, Mike. What you're going to do. The whole evening is going to be judged on what you ask.
No pressure.
So the whole evening, all the money the university spent, all the people that gave up their free time, it's all resting on you, and we believe you're going to be absolutely dynamic.
All right, well, my question's more about the interviewing process.
All right.
I was laid off in November.
Okay.
I was in public relations for about 3 years before that, and in sales support roles before that. What I'm trying to find out is why I'm not landing the job. I've gone to companies where I've gone to the 4th interview, the 5th interview. I've interviewed with the CEO, and then that's it. I haven't heard from them. Maybe I lost the job to the other person who got that far.
Have you asked them? Have you asked?
I've tried to contact the HR person, but I found them to be unreachable also since the interview.
Those bastards, right? You know, unbelievable. HR.
Miserable SOBs.
Yep.
But my thing is, since I was laid off, I took a restaurant job as opposed to staying unemployed and taking unemployment. And I've tried to move into management type responsibilities in the restaurant, so I can also use that. It's not just an empty job. Try and use that experience to add to my resume a little bit during my search, but basically what I think they see is a gap in my employment history. I've been out of PR for 8 to 9 months, and that I think is what's holding me back. And I just wanted to see, like, is what I'm doing in the restaurant as far as adding, helping out the management, doing what I can, is that helping? Is that just completely out of the realm of the industry?
Absolutely useless for your career, because they view it as you can't get a job, and so you're filling in.
Maybe detrimental to your career,
absolutely.
not just useless, but worse than that.
Yeah.
Working in the restaurant in general?
Huh?
Yes.
Well, they don't care about the economy. They care about it doesn't matter. They don't care about your well-being. They care about whether you have the skill set for the job they want to have.
So what can he do?
Well, the question is a different question. That's the second question. The first question would be do you really want to be in public relations, or do you want to switch and do something different?
Well, I mean, public relations had a lot of what I was interested in. It had like the sales part of it. It had the
I'm going to
creative
stop
part
you
of
for a
it.
minute. I've always wondered when you ask a yes or no question, right, and you get like
An explanation.
4 minutes of stuff that makes no sense to me. Right? It's really yes or no. Do you want to be in public relations, or do you want to do something else?
No, it's not the perfect job. No.
Well, then what are you applying for public relations jobs
Because
for?
that's where my experience is. What else? I mean, how do I mean.
Well,
other
that's the second
before
question that you asked. Then what do you want to do? See, it's a waterfall chain. You're a great. By the way, it's a great end question to a session, and because really you are exhibiting what so many people's frustrations are today, and how do they get themselves to go and switch and do something different when they were comfortable with what they were doing? It was okay, but I don't really know what I want to do and where I want to go, and how do I make that transition, which is what networking is all about.
See,
So,
I'm sorry.
no, good.
What happens in one's career is we fall into these positions, if you will, or these professions, and you start at, let's say, we'll pick a number, $25,000 a year. And that $25,000 becomes $35,000, $45,000, $55,000, $65,000, $75,000, $85,000, and so on and so forth. So let's just say you're at 100 now. Now all of a sudden you find yourself out of PR, not sure you want to be in PR, you have your new car, you have your new house, you may have a kid running around, and you've got bills. Now you say, I want to do something different. Well, to do something different, which is perhaps over here, you kind of have to come down and over. You can't just go across, because most people, unless you can find a position that you're able to transfer all the skills and competencies that you have, they're not going to pay you $100,000 for an entry-level job. because they have so many other people that they could pay. And so you really have to identify what it is that you want to do, where's the bullseye, right? And then what sacrifices you're willing to make to get there. And the jobs that you're going to get, they're not going to be the bullseye right away in most cases. But how many rings outside? I can tell you right now, if it's anything in corporate America or if you want to do something in PR, it's not a restaurant, usually. So if you're off the target with the restaurant, you have to find a job that gets you back in, something in marketing, if that's what you like.
But I've also tried. I've interviewed for marketing positions, sales positions. I mean, you name. I mean, anything somewhat related. I've interviewed for. I will
Look,
tell you.
it could be 10 things. It could be your interview skills are crap, right? It could be it's the wrong jobs you're going for with the people that you're interviewing with, right? You have to do a real strong self-assessment as to, you know, what it is that you're doing wrong. And by the way, you're not going to get feedback from the company that didn't hire you. They don't care.
Now, there's rules and regulations and laws that prevent them from giving you honest feedback. I will tell you this. I can't walk over to you because I'm Mike, but I'll give you my business card, and I'll be happy to meet with you for an hour or two, and we'll go through the entire interview process.
That'd be great.
Oh, my God.
You got to come to New York, though.
That's pretty great.
We're 48th and Broadway, so get yourself into New York. I'm not coming out here. Okay.
And I think that's it, right? Yes. Okay, there you go.
I think
I learned a
join me
lot.
in thanking our panelists tonight. It was truly wonderful. I think they offered us a real fresh perspective, perhaps, that we didn't have when we walked in the room. I know that I have that now. Yeah. But, so thank you, one and all, really. It was wonderful, very much.
It's our pleasure.
I just have a few housekeeping things before I invite you to stay and grab a cup of coffee and maybe do a little bit of additional networking before we leave for the evening. First, I would be remiss if I didn't introduce Dean Sam Basu from the College of Business, who's here with us tonight. Dean Basu, could you... Thank you very much for coming.
If I may take a moment, since my name has been called, we have an excellent program, a new concentration in MBA. As I was listening to each and every one of you, it seems like a lot of you are kind of in an introspective mood, you're kind of at crossroads, you're looking around, you've done a great thing for a while, and you're looking around at what else is out there. This program fits you like a team. This MBA in entrepreneurship that we are starting, that is directed towards people who have some experience and who are looking forward to kind of taking a stock of their lives and doing something, as Christos said, on their own. So it draws in from a number of disciplines and looks forward to doing something for yourself, creating something, and leading to creation of wealth. So there's some posters out there, one pager, and if not, please give me a call. We will be at your disposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Basu. And I also do want to underscore what Dean Basu just said, to tell you that there are career information materials out on the front desk as you're leaving, some information about graduate admissions here at the university. So please take some time before you leave to browse over the table and see if anything pertains to you. I'm also very excited, and take your programs home, because I'm very excited about some of the new services that we're offering to our alumni this year. One of them is the new Career Vault, which is online. It's going to be an exclusive site open to students and alumni of William Patterson University. It just came online, so go visit the career website, and you'll find company profiles, career guides that are actually downloadable. You can download them and save them on your computer. Valuable career guides, message boards, videos, just lots of different pointers and helpers as you move forward in your careers. And also on the table, you'll find a listing of career workshops that are available through our career development office that as alumni you are all entitled to attend. So give them a call, make arrangements, find out a little bit about when they're given to you, and please partake of them. If you need an Alumni Association ID card to gain entrance, give our office a call. Our office telephone number is on the back page of the program, as well as our email. And I encourage you, if you have ideas or want to tell us more about your needs, give me a call, send me an email. You know, I'm here to find out more of how we can meet your needs. And because of that, I want to ask you, did tonight's program meet your needs? Would you come back to another in-person networking program like this again? I'm seeing heads shaking yes. All right, we're going to try to offer more opportunities like this for you over the next year. And just finally, before I let you go, we have our business card drawing. So we have a couple of lovely parting gifts. Susan, I'll let you pick the first one. Okay, Dawn Olson. Dawn, are you still here? Okay.
That's right, a vacation.
Take this as a sign. Okay, and the next one? Tommy, I'll let you pick the second one. Great. James Franzetti.
Awesome.
They just happen to be the ringers who asked the question.
I don't know. We're gifting you with some William Patterson merchandise so you can go out and promote our brand out there in the public. I thank you very much for coming tonight. Please, as I say, my office is always open. I answer my own phone. Please contact me if you ever need anything. And again, thank you so much to our panelists for a really wonderful evening.